Again, try to keep your back straight. Keep to the wall. Obviously, try to let go of any tightness, stiffness in your body and mind. Comfortable. Make yourself comfortable. Feeling the weight of your body on the chair, being grounded in that way. And let your breath flow naturally. Observe the breath mindfully and try to have awareness of what you are observing. Simply observing and being aware. And feeling all underneath. Observe them, recognize them, and be aware of them. Try not to engage with whatever feelings or that might have. Instead, try to lift your mind with the breath. Once your mind is settled down, quiet, in moment, in present with the breath, then we can try to concentrate. As long as mind is disturbed, not control, negative emotion, so we are not free from those negative emotions, such as anger, you know, ignorance, jealousy, from and so forth. Even though we might have the best external conditions, good job, good paying job, good relatively good relationship and so forth, manipulation or even though external conditions seems very good, excellent, but if our mind is not free from those negative emotions, and one of those negative emotion arises, disturb our mind, agitate our mind. You do that in that moment. You do your peace, your in that moment. Your joyful state, feel not miserable, unhappy. On the other hand, if we have less of those aspects of emotions, or if we're free from those aspects of emotions, even though external conditions might not be the best, even though we might have some health issues, even though we might not have the best job, even though our relationship might not be the best, but one can still find some inner peace, even in such circumstances. Some level of calmness, peacefulness, joy in life. And we find all experiences, human beings experience. What it shows is quite clear to inner peace, joy, happiness come from within, from inside, from your own mind, state of mind, not from the external object in condition. That being the case, it's important to work with our mind, trying to reduce those negative aspects with emotions as much as possible, trying to cultivate and increase and improve those helpful positive state of mind as much as possible. As much as possible. To do that, we need to practice correctly, continuously. as we practice meditation, we need to be reminded of those practices again and again. Continue to learn something about it. Maybe purpose and when to visit to the thought, to the person. Coming here together, giving our person time, energy, resources to listen, to engage in discussion, reflection, contemplation. So all of these become cause and conditions to inspire us to practice. So become cause and conditions to reduce those disturbing negative emotions and increase and improve those helpful also state of mind, such as true love, compassion, fortunate mind, wisdom, patient mind, practice of generosity, moral discipline, maybe concentration, joy, effort, and virtues, so forth. And all of those become cause and conditions to obtain our highest potential, the fully awakened or fully enlightened state. So we can get a health benefit, not only for few, but for each and every sentient being. And everything that we engage throughout the day, weeks, months, years, this life, to all others' life until we are simply life, fully enlightened state. With all our actions become cause and conditions to fully awaken state. And all of them become cause and condition to be help and benefit to others. And all of them become cause and conditions to destroy all the delusions, especially our self-centeredness and self-grasping ignorance. So just to kind of summarize a little bit in relation to the statement that Buddha made, whoever sees dependent arising is the Dharma, and whoever sees the Dharma is the Buddha. To that statement, and every Buddha asking more, what does that mean to both of the material? What is dependent arising means? What is Dharma means? What is the Buddha mean? And then in relation to that, then both of them maybe they're giving their answers. What the dependent arising means in terms of external dependent arisings, depending on cause conditions, the in terms of internal dependent arisings of the 12 links, how each of links is depending on previous link, and how each of previous link lead to the next following link, and how within cause and conditions that way. And in relation to that, and especially in relation to the coming back to the external dependent arising in more detail, then it is explained, with cause and conditions, two principles that how we resolve or any condition phenomena depend on cause and conditions. There are two, causal relationship and conditional relationship. So in causal relationship, in terms of plant, then in the seed of the plant to start with, and conditional relation or conditions for the plant on top of the cause, the seed, then the sixth element that is needed to support for the growth of that plant from that seed. How each of those elements functions and support and help for that the seed, the cause, to give, arising to the result, the plant that the fruit that you enjoy from that. So that was the way we kind of, and of course we are also in terms of Dharma, then Dharma referring to the Eight Noble Path, And together with the result of those Eight Noble Paths, that is the Nirvana, the cessations. So that the cessation, the path, the Eight Noble Path, and the result of such Eight Noble Path, the cessation, the Nirvana, is the Dharma. And the Buddha is, through having actualized that Dharma within oneself, having seen, have a realizations of that Dharma, especially the right view, right view of emptiness, dependent arising, through the support of other noble path, and then and that the wisdom of the right view that is supported by the Bodhicitta mind, the method, then one purify or destroy or eliminate the two obscurations. The obscurations of the defilement and the obscuration of the knowledge. And through having destroyed those two obscurations and having cultivated all the positive inner qualities that they need to be cultivated, that you have actualized all the positive inner qualities that need to be actualized. There's no more to be actualized anymore. There's no more to be learned anymore. There's no more to abandon anything. There's no more to achieve anything. You reach a point where you reach that, and that is the fully awakening of the Buddha state. That's what the Buddha means. Fully awakening. You awake from the sleep, the darkness of the sleep. In the same way, you are awakened, and that is free from the darkness of those obscurations. And there's no more to be awakened anymore. You are fully awake. There's no more darkness to be, or there's no more sleep or darkness to be awake from. Fully awakened, and having, achieved all the positive qualities. So that is fully awakened, fully enlightened one. That's the Buddha. So yeah, I think that was a little bit that what we kind of went through as today. And through the support of all those conditions, such as the six elements and the cause, the cause, the seat, through the support of the conditions of the element of the water, earth, fire, space, wind. Both of that, the pod, the seed, grow into the plant that produce the flowers and fruit. Even though there is that, even though there is no thought of each of those elements to think that I'm going to produce or I'm going to function in this way, or I'm going to support in that way, but by coming together with them, the result is being produced. And that's the dependent arising, the law of cause and effect. And it also mentioned that law of cause and effect, the dependent arising of law of cause and effect doesn't change whether Buddha arrive, whether Buddha appear or Buddha doesn't appear, whether Buddha teach, whether Buddha doesn't teach, whether you believe, whether you don't believe. That's what it is. It doesn't change. That is the nature of that. That's the fact. That's the way things are. Just like the law of gravity, it doesn't change whether you believe it or not. Just because you don't believe, then it doesn't change the law of gravity. Or because you believe, then, with the law of that, it doesn't depend on someone talking about it, not talking about it. It doesn't depend on you believing or not believing. That's the way things is, the law, and it's functional of that. That's how it is, and it will continue to function that way. Staying with that is the dependent arising law of cause and effect. And I think it's easy for us to understand and accept that when it comes to external conditions, isn't it? We all know, yeah. But when it comes to the internal conditions, internal dependent arising, related to our experience, then it's much more harder. It's much more harder. Then we think, oh, it's nothing to do with law of cause and effect. Nothing to do with that, it's his fault, her fault. Hard to understand and accept it. But again, whether it's hard or not, but that's the reality. And if you understand, if you accept, it will be less painful. If you don't accept, it will be more painful. That's what it is. If I don't accept that, and if I start to blame other things, instead of trying to change the cause and conditions, and thereby trying to change the result, instead I'm trying to point finger to something else, and that doesn't solve the problems. Sometimes it creates the problem more, and you experience more pain unnecessarily. You get upset, angry, and you experience more suffering because of those upset, anger, the resentment, all this, grudges, hatred, which we don't need to do that. So we are in the page number 6, what we call the second paragraph. Yeah. The sprout, is not created by itself. Nor created by others. Also nor created by both. And nor created by permanent Ishvara, nor is not transformed by permanent time, and nor is not derived from Prakriti, Prakriti. Okay. From his own nature, Prakriti, and not born without any cause. Instead, the sprout come into existence by depending on cause and condition, and changing an impermanent cause and conditions. So here, not by itself. Again, there are certain school of thought, where they think that everything is by itself. And so if then to that, if everything is created by itself, then there is no need to by putting certain cause and condition and arising that again. Because it's already at the time of the seed, the sprout is already been created there. So there's no reason to put all these conditions together for the sprout to arise from that seed, because it already existed. Because it exists from it is created by itself, from itself. And so therefore that is kind of refuted, either, yeah. Okay. So that, and then also is, even though the sprout arise by depending on other cause and conditions, such as the seed and the sixth element and so forth, but they do not depend on others inherent existing conditions. If they depends, if it is independent cause and conditions, then that cause and condition cannot produce that sprout. Because if it's independent or inherently existent, then it becomes static, permanent. And something with static, permanent cannot produce something impermanent, such as the sprout. So that one kind of refute some of the misconceptions of non-Buddhists, as well as some of the, even Buddhist school of thought, such as Bhavasika, Sotandrikas. The Bhavasika, Sotandrika, we say the sprout depend on other cause and conditions, but the sprout is inherent existence, and the cause and condition are inherent existence. So inherent existing sprout, by depending on inherent existing other cause and conditions, then that is how sprout comes into existence. So then that is kind of refuted by saying that if something is inherent existence, then it cannot produce. Nothing can be changed. Because it becomes status permanent. Otherwise, if it changes, it can't be inherent existence. If something changes by changing cause and conditions, it can, so therefore it's not created by inherent existence, other cause and conditions, others. Okay. Relatively non-inherent existence, of course, it is, the sprout is created by depending on others, cause and condition, non-inherent cause and conditions. And they're not created by both, then of course that is more easy to understand. But it's not created by itself, as well as inherently exist in others, cause and conditions. Because both of them have been refuted, so therefore it can't be both. Not created by Ishvara, that is kind of prominent God, the particular God. It's also not created by that kind of all-powerful, mighty creator, Ishvara God. And also, is not being created or arise or transformed by, never changing time, permanent time, as some again says. Nor is not derived from its own inherently existing nature, And also is not created or born without any causes, as the mother says, But instead is by depending on there's cause and conditions. Not only there's cause and condition, the sprout is, since sprouts are impermanent, therefore the cause and condition should be also impermanent, similar cause and conditions. Therefore, the cause and condition for that sprout cannot be something permanent. Whether it's the time, whether it's the Ishvara, whether it's a different energy that different others, where they say is the permanent. So rejecting that. Nevertheless, through the coming together of the conditions, such as the element of earth, water element, fire element, wind element, space element, and season or impermanent time of the seasons elements, then sprout is formed as the seed is seasons. So the seed is ceasing and is being transformed into a sprout in seasons. So basically, when the seed is being seasons, that means the seed is being changing and transforming. And so therefore, again, it can't be permanent, it's impermanent, it's changing. If something permanent, it can't be, there is no ceasings and there is no growth, birth or arising, Thus, is the conditional relation to outer dependent arising to be seen. So that is the conditional cause and conditions. So there is cause relationship and conditional relationship in relation with the outer dependent arising. The causal relationship to the outer, in terms of the sprout, the seed is the cause. And then those 6 elements, the conditions. And coming together with those cause and conditions, then it produces the result. Here, outer dependent arising is to be seen in the term of 5 aspects. What are those 5 aspects? And one, as not permanent. So those external dependent arisings are not permanent, are not discontinuous, and as not involving transmigrations, and as the formations of large result from small cause, and as continuity of similar type. And so then here it comes what that means, each of those then What does it means is not permanent? What does it means is not discontinuous and so forth. How is it not permanent? It's not permanent because the sprout and the seeds are different. The sprout is not seed. So it is saying, it's not permanent because sprout and seed are different. Okay. Sprout is not seed, and the sprout does not come from the seed after it has ceased. Nor does it come from the seed while it is not at ceased. Rather, the sprout is born precisely as the seed ceases. So, is permanent? Is not permanent because it's impermanent, and it's impermanent because the sprout come into existence simultaneously while the seed is ceasing. Seed is ceasing as a seed and transforming in the sprout. It's not like there is a permanent seed first, and then that produces to another permanent sprout. Do you get it?
Yep.
There's one permanent seed, and then it produces permanent sprout. Instead, it's the seed, and it is also not like the seed has already ceased, no more there, and then sprouts started to come. It says while the seed is ceasing, the sprout is being produced. That means the seed is changing from becoming seed to sprout. Okay. Are we clear?
Mm-hmm.
So because it's being transformed or changed from being seed to sprout, while the seed is being ceasing or as a seed and is slowly becoming a sprout, changing and transforming a sprout. So that means there is a change. Both of them, seed and sprout. And so something that transforms, something that changes, sometimes that, changing something cannot be permanent. Cannot be permanent. Therefore, it's impermanent because it's ever changing. Are we clear?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
Without the seed, there'd be no sprout. How does that figure in?
What is that?
So the main thing is just about impermanence, but the impermanence of the seed and the sprout.
No, it is saying these outer conditions such as sprout are not permanent, but they are impermanent. And he's explaining why it is not permanent. Okay? Because here it's saying the outer dependent arising has 5 aspects, and one of them is not being permanent. And so when we talk about outer dependent arising, so then it's the seed, the sprout, and then the leaves, the stem, and the flowers, and the fruit. In terms of that, and all other condition, external dependent arisings. And so it's saying why it's not permanent. So it is explaining why it is not permanent. In terms of here, both the sprout and the seed, why they are not permanent. The seed is changed, seed is not permanent because the seed change into sprout. It become by coming together many other conditions to the support of the elements, and so that the seed doesn't remain seed forever. The seed started to cease as a seed, and then transform into a sprout and become a sprout. And therefore the seed cannot be impermanent and permanent. Therefore it's impermanent. Same with the sprout. The sprout was not sprout from the very beginning. It was a seed at one time, and then to coming together many cause conditions, such as those 6 elements, and sometimes maybe more than that. And then through that, then the sprout being produced. The sprout is come into existence. Sprout is created, come into existence by depending on many causing conditions, and so therefore it can't be permanent. Because they are two different, and then the two different is transformed from one to another. It's not like they are same kind of permanent. There's two different things, seed and sprout. And then this sprout with the many causing conditions, then is kind of transformed into that. The seed is transformed into that sprout. So that means it's changing. So that's why it's not permanent. Yeah, and again, the sprout cannot come while the seeds had not ceased. While, at the same time, it cannot come after the seed has already been ceased. There's no more seed anymore, and then suddenly sprout comes. So it's while seed is ceasing, it's kind of present moment while the seed is ceasing as a seed, meaning transforming into sprout. They say it's like a scale. It's some, scale when you when you put the weight, the other go up.
Yeah.
Simultaneously. It's not like one first go when you put the weight go down, this side go down, and that side go up later. It happens simultaneously at the same time. And that's what it's kind of talking about, It's not after being ceased. If it's being after ceased and it arrives, then it's later, It's not happening simultaneously. In that case, then it can be permanent. But here is in a moment it's changing simultaneously while the seed is ceasing as a seed. At the same time, it's becoming a sprout. Everyone's clear? Yeah. How is not discontinuous? It is not discontinuous because sprout is not born from a seed that's already ceased. Nor from a seed that is not at ceased. Rather, like the beam of scale, it's coming here. Like the beam of scale tilting from up to down, the sprout is born precisely when the seed is ceasing or ceased. It's happening simultaneously at that time. So that means it's continuing. The seed continue in a different form. Do you get it? Now seed has it's continue, it has changed, it has continued because it's no more remain as a seed, but it has continued in a different form, as in the form of sprout. And slowly the sprout will also continue and transform into some, then this, slowly that then it continues. It doesn't. So therefore, again, and these are again important, just as all these external dependent arising, such as seed, sprout, all of them continues. Also internal, our so-called the internal being, the self, and the mind, also they continue. Just same like here. It might take a different form. It might. So again, we have to relate that, because sometimes we just external, and sometimes again there's a disconnections. Do you get it? It feels like, oh, it only happens to the external dependent arising. It doesn't apply to internal dependent arising. Because the man is actually, the Buddha is trying to really communicate with us, trying to explain the mainly the dependent arising internal world and experiences. But because sometimes it's something we cannot see with our naked eye, sometimes it's hard for us to understand. So he's using this external dependent arisings as an example. So we have some reference to understand. Oh, if this is how it works, then that is same. The internal cause and conditions, or the dependent arising, that's how it works. Otherwise, why would they go through why it's not discontinued, or this different aspect of that? There's a reason to explain in this way, and for us to understand, and then to be able to relate. Yes.
Can I ask you, would that be like there'd be anger arising, and then as it started to cease, violence would come from somebody that you're arguing with? Would it be like that? The internal causes and conditions? Is that what you mean, Geshela, about the?
No, I'm talking about, because a lot of time, sometimes we, a lot of people, or a lot of in the past continue, believe that while they see there's continuity of all these external dependent arising, they can't see continuity of internal dependent arising. They think when you die, that is it. There's no continuity of that. And when you die, there's no continuity. Your mind is gone. There's no continuity of self. So that is what I'm trying to say. The internal, internal dependent arising, just like the external dependent arising, just as it continues all the times, taking different forms, different things. There's always continuities. Even after the flower, fruit, then again from that it gives seeds. From that seed again it continues. Or even that flower, even that leaves, even that maybe go into the ground and become a fertilizer, something, and then that become mixed with the earth, and that transform in something, and there's always continuity of that. Keep on coming. If there is that kind of continuity in those external dependent arising, how can we say that there's no continuity to the internal dependent arisings? Just because I don't believe it.
Of our mind.
Yeah.
Of our mind, Geshe. Geshe's talking about our mind.
Our mind as well as the self.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And also is like this, the beam of scale tilting up from up to down simultaneously. Same thing when we die and when we take in the form of particle beings. That's what happens simultaneously. While the consciousness is leaving our consciousness, the body of these human beings, at the same time simultaneously, like that. scale buildings at the same time, simultaneously taking that particle in the form of particle. So that's how it continues. How does it not involve transmigrations? Since sprout is one thing and seed is another, that which is very sprout is not seed, hence it does not involve transmigrations. So I think it is talking about, now, the seed does not transmigrate as a seed as it was, and the sprout is not being transmigrated as a sprout because there are two things, but instead, when it is transmigrated, it is transmigrated in the sense of transforming, changing, the seed becoming a sprout, it's not like, so I think again here it might be relating with, in some school of thoughts, they think, they believe Atma, which means, permanent soul, and they feel that they need to be permanent soul, to continue to carry the karma and to experience the karma of the past, because it's not permanent, so they find it difficult to continue it. If it's not permanent, how can it continue? How can the self continue? If the self doesn't continue, then who experienced the karma of the past? And so that's why they feel like they need to have the permanent soul, and which Buddha rejected. So even there's no permanent soul, there's no such thing, something permanent that transmits to something permanent. But actually, there's nothing there, it's probably two different things because they are permanent. It's not like something that transforms and changes into something else, but it's a permanent kind of transforming, transmigrating into something. And so it's saying there's no such transmigrations. It's like, the cup transmigrate into this cloth. There's no like that. How does it entail the formation of large result from a small cause? A large fruit forms from a plant of small seed, therefore it entails the formation of large result from a small cause. And so again, it's saying, even with a very small seed, it can produce a big tree, large tree, with so many branches, with so many leaves, with so many flowers, with so many fruits. Then not only it produces all of that, it can produce for 100 years, some of them for thousands, probably 1,000 years. I heard like olive trees, how long they? I heard somewhere a long time.
Yeah. Centuries.
Yeah. So one seed, with one seed, you can have such a huge, big plant tree and continue to evolve. So again, it's important. This is, and when we apply to the internal world, it's saying how each of our karma Small karma produce big result, large result. Sometimes we just look at this and it seems it's about external, why does he go so, why he speak about that? It doesn't seem so much related with us or our experiences. These are giving example and then we apply. These are the reference. Just as this external world has this kind of potential, a small seed to produce such a large result, large tree with so many flowers and slowly so many fruits continue for so many years. Same way, each of our actions, internal dependent arisings of our karma or our actions, how each of those, even the small karma, can produce such a big result. And therefore, as Buddha advised, we shouldn't be careless with negative karma, even if it's very small, and even if it's very insignificant, that the unwholesome or non-virtuous or negative action, even though it might seem very not so big, insignificant, small, but still you have to be careful, mindful, careful, because even though it's small, the result can produce big result. In the same way, Buddha also advised, do not also ignore creating virtuous action whenever you get any opportunity, even if it's very insignificant and very small. Because again, even if it's very small, but it has potential to produce a huge result. So I think with this again, we try to relate with that external in relation to some truth. I think that in other Buddha says, do not be careless. Thinking is small because then we give examples, even in terms of virtues, do not be careless and not use the opportunity to create the virtue karma or virtues whenever possible, even if it's small, because drop of water fill the buckets. One drop of water seems very insignificant, but again, many drop of water can fill the bucket. And also in some of negative karma, we talk about don't be careless, thinking it's insignificant and small, because spark of fire can start the whole village or town into the fire. The spark is very small to start with, but it can burn the whole city. So similarly, different examples put again. And so again, with this, lastly, the fruit formed precisely according to the type of seed planted. Therefore, it involves continuity of similar type. So if you plant apple seed, okay, when it grows, you don't expect to see chilies. Okay. Or if you plant the chili seed, when it grows, you don't expect to see apples. Even though there is crops, even though there's a seed, and even though there is a result, but the seed and the result and seed has to be similar. That's what it means. You know, similar cause produce similar result. The result depend on similar cause and condition. You know, not every cause can produce any kind of result. Not every result come from any kind of cause. It has to be very specific. That's what it is saying. You know. So with that example, external, now we apply internal. And when you apply internal, you know, your virtues, actions, or wholesome actions produce specific result of joyful experience, not a suffering. On the other hand, your unwholesome action, negative, is that what I get? Yeah. On other hand, your virtuous action, the positive action, positive karma, produce pleasant experience, joyful, happy experience, not a pain and suffering. So again, it has to, if you want happiness, joyful experience, you have to create similar cause, which is virtues. If you do not want suffering experiences, then you have to, you know, stop creating similar cause that lead to that kind of suffering. That means you have to stop creating unwholesome, non-virtuous actions. So basically, I can hear what he's saying, that karma is definite. Definite, it means that every result has very particular and very specific cause. You know. So if you want particular result, then you have to create that specific cause. This particular cause. Just like if you want apple, you have to plant apple seed, not a chili seed. If you want a chili, you have to plant a chili seed, not an apple seed. Not every seed can produce chili. Not every seed can produce apple. So in that similarity with that understanding, then when it comes to that, then, you know, when we are experiencing, you know, unpleasant, undesirable, unpleasant experiences, you know, that means we must have created similar cause with unwholesome actions or karma. If we are experiencing something pleasant experiences, happiness, joy, then we must have created in the past some engaged or created some virtuous karma and positive karma in some of past. In the futures, if you want to have more happiness, then we have to create more virtuous action, engage into more virtues, create more positive karma. If we don't want more suffering in the futures, then we have to stop creating the cause that lead to that suffering, those negative karma and virtues. And so because of that similar cause and cause producing similar results, and similar results depending on similar cause. Yes, please. You had something?
No.
No?
Geshela, I've got a question.
Yes, please.
So if you are currently going through suffering and the result of past negative karma, can you do something to sort of
Change it.
change the current situation? I get do the virtuous actions now for the future, but can you do something to change what you're going through?
Yeah, I do believe and think, based on my understanding of karma, is possible. But at the same time, you know, we have to be also realistic. And and it's not only about karma, even in every situation. The climate situation, let's talk about that. I'm not talking from karma point of view in general. Whatever we're experiencing because of that, can it be changed with our present actions? Yes, that we can change a little bit, but at the same time, there are certain things we cannot change. The damage which has done, to fix it, it might take many, with our present actions, might take maybe 10 years, 20 years, 40 years to see better result from that, our actions. Just as actions of 50 years, 60 years of all these pollutions and everything, we are experiencing the result of that. And so with our present actions, we can affect it to some level, but can we really completely change everything now? I don't think so. It will take time to show the complete result of our present actions, and depending on how strong the policies and the commitments of the world in everything, we might see better result maybe after 50 years, or maybe within 30 years, or maybe within 20 years. It depends on how strong action, how committed we are of that. And I believe in the same way that is in karma too, some result that is already happened, we cannot change. One of them, I would say, like for example, I'm born in this world at this time. I cannot change that. I'm born to this family of my parents. I cannot change that. Even I don't like it. It's not I don't like, but even I don't like it, I cannot change that. Even I don't like, I cannot change being born in this time, in this world. So like that, there are certain things which already happened and it has already fully produced the result. Those are not. But then there are some karmic things that we are experiencing the result of certain karma, but which has not fully actualized in the process of going through that, and that we can change. Like let's say I have a karma, to get sick, and then get worse and worse, and really bad, and then even take my life. And I'm already have experienced that karma, and I'm in the process of going through that. But it hasn't fully manifested the whole karma. It is in that, it's in that, towards that. And through changing conditions and our actions and practice, we can stop from going further. So from becoming worse. In other words, from ripening the karma fully. The karma is already ripened, but it has not ripened fully. It's like the plant has already planted, the plant is already there, but now by stopping giving water and that, then you can stop them from growing fully. It is already planted, it's already grown up, but then you can stop giving the conditions for it to grow fully. And same way, also karma is ripening, and due to many causes and conditions, that karma is ripening, and when it met all the other causes and conditions, then it will ripen fully. It hasn't ripened fully, and that one we can change from ripening fully by, our practice, through our actions, that changing the conditions. Uh, that is my understanding.
Yes,
Can I ask you a question?
yes, sure.
I'm stuck on the transmigration part. So where it says that it does not involve in the seed sprout sort of process. Because when we do prayers and practices and we speak of all mother transmigratory beings, and I understand that that is, I think, you know, when the consciousness, when we go from one life to another, and we look at all other things as being our mother in a past life.
Mhm.
Why does it not apply here? Is
It-
it just because
it-
we're
it-
looking
it-
at the lifespan of the seed itself, or is that?
No, here what is he is saying is what is refuting some idea that something permanent transmigrate into something permanent. You know, so if something transmigrate in something permanent that transmigrate into something, then that means it wouldn't have any change. But in our understanding, there is a transmigrating, but it is in the form of changing. You know, the persons who transmigrate from this to next life is not exactly the same person. It's the continuity of that person, but it's not the same person. You know, and not only from one life to another life, even in this life, we develop, we progress, but it's the continuity of yourself, but it is not the same. You know, who you are 20 years ago and now is not the same person. There is a change. You know, so that is where this comes about, because as I mentioned, there is some school of thought that thinks, you know, it has to be permanent to transmit from one to another, so that they can carry the karmic seed and so they can experience the karma for the past. And Buddha is saying it's not necessary to have that kind of, you know, in the sense, and then with this giving these examples, you know. Yes, please.
I was thinking along the same lines, given that there's no soul and no transmigration, with rebirth, is it more conditional on your state at the time of death and whatever energy signature you're carrying at that time, and whether you have craving, which then would cause the rebirth? How does that work?
Uh-huh. The craving and grasping, how they play a role in the next rebirth, I think we will cover when it comes to the link of that. But in terms of in Buddhist understandings of the self and the mind is always involved,
Yes.
never same all the time. It's impermanent, it's ever involving, changing all the time. Your mind is involving all the time. Your mind is changing all the time. You know, the self is involving all the time. Self is changing all the time. You know, so therefore, even though there is no permanent self, no permanent mind, unchanging permanent mind, but there's continuity of that. There's continuity of the mind. There's continuity of the self. You know, and that the self that continue, you know, just like I'm the continuity of the young baby of mine, and then the child teenager that I was, but I'm not exactly the same, even though I'm continuity of that, and therefore I'm carrying a lot of what happened when I was. We say when I, but actually it's more continuity of that, you know. So the continuity of what happened in my time, I might be carrying those imprints, and that can affect me now.
That's on the energy signature in the consciousness
Yes,
at that time.
yeah,
It's just trying to reconcile with the idea of karma affecting your rebirth. So there's got to be something that carries that and
yes, yes,
translates it into your next life.
yes, yes. Yeah, there is the self, the consciousness carry that karmic seed, you know, because that is what that continues. You know, while it is continuing, while it's carrying that, but it's always involving.
Yeah.
And that is what difference is.
Mm.
You know, it's always changing, it's always evolving. You know, it is like the water that start from the mountains and they'll go through many different forests, desert, and all different form of land, and finally go to the ocean. It's the same continue, the same waters, but it's evolving. You know, in some places it's very muddy, polluted. In some places it started to become more clean, drinkable. In some places, you know, different things mixed, you know, so it is changing, involving, but it's the same continuity of the same, the water running from that. You know, and so similarly, and is that carry that, you know, the karmic seed. Okay. Don't want to get distracted. Sometimes you work too much and then get distracted. So yeah, page number 7. Thus, the outer dependent arising is seen in the term of 5 aspects. So with that, it explains, you know, outer dependent arisings in the term of 5 aspects that is not prominent, it's not discontinued, you know, and yeah, it is not in transmigrations, it's not, and then, you know, larger result from a small cause, and then similar the cause and the effect, or the cause and the result. So those are. And so now, having explained the external dependent arising, now the main subjects of this teachings comes. The main subject of teachings actually internal dependent arisings. You know, because that is more related to our mind, our experiences, and Buddha gave the external dependent arising just to have better understanding how dependent arising functions in the external world, and then saying this is not only how it applies to dependent arising external world, but it is same. It applies same the law of that cause and effect or dependent arising same whether it's external or internal. That's what that is. So then you know, so then coming to the main the main aspect of that is similarly inner dependent arising also arise from 2 principles from the water. So what are those 2 principles?
from a causal relationship, so causal relationship or cause, the principle of cause, and the conditional relationship, in the conditions. Again, as I mentioned yesterday, extinguishing cause and conditions is important, especially when we try to understand the karma better. What then is the causal relation to inner dependent arising, So then it starts with the ignorance. I think it's question more. And ignorance, of course, there are billions of ignorance, but principle ignorance, that's the main principle ignorance, which is the root of the sufferings. So mainly two, the ignorance of ultimate truth or reality, and the ignorance of law of cause and effect, the karma. And mainly even those two, and within those two, the main one is the ignorance of ultimate reality or truth. Okay. And we come maybe later. And when you talk about ignorance, of course, we can understand ignorance as being a state of mind that is not knowing something, not knowing the reality here. But here, the fundamental ignorance, that's the root of, all the affective emotions and the actions, and the root of all the suffering is not only is not knowing the reality, but actually it's misperceiving the reality. It's much more worse. Not knowing and then it's one thing, but not only not knowing, but actually perceiving it to mistakenly be something else. That's more dangerous. It's much more dangerous.
I think I missed that. Could you just repeat what you were saying, please?
Not knowing something is ignorance, but misperceiving something which is not true to be true is much more dangerous. And this is what is ignorance. So not knowing what is the cause of any illness, sickness, or any problems is ignorance. Lecture, even as a COVID. Not knowing what cause it, not knowing what's the cause of that is ignorance. That's one level. The most dangerous and worst level is then perceiving something which is not true to be that truth.
Like a conspiracy theory about COVID.
Yeah, the conspiracy theory about everything. That someone who is not knowing, ignorant, maybe their mind is more open to kind of, understand and more flexible to change. But when someone has that kind of misperceptions and misunderstanding, then it becomes much more dangerous. So similarly, that's here ignorance. Here the fundamental ignorance of this set grasping ignorance is that, it perceives the reality totally mistakenly. It's not just not knowing, it's more than not knowing. It's misperceiving totally wrong, you know. So anyway, so that is the ignorance, So it starts with that ignorance, causing the karmic formation and so on, such as consciousness, name and form, the sixth sense pathologies of sources, contact, feelings, craving, grasping, becoming, birth, aging and sickness, until finally the birth causing the aging and death. If the ignorance does not arise, if you are able to destroy the ignorance, if you are able to cut the ignorance through the source of the wisdom, realizing the ultimate reality or the truth, through the wisdom thought or wisdom weapons of realizing the ultimate truth or reality, through that thought, if we can cut that ignorance, and therefore that ignorance do not arise, then, karmic formation will not manifest. If the karmic formation doesn't manifest, then, the third consciousness will not arise. If the consciousness does not, name and form will not arise. And so on until finally, if the birth does not arise, if there is no samsaric birth, that's a result of the karma, contaminated karma and the delusion. If there is no more such samsaric birth, then aging or death do not manifest. Then you don't need to age and death. We can stop aging and death by stopping the birth, the samsaric birth. If there is no more samsaric birth, then there is no more aging and no more death. And if there is no, okay, and then and how we can stop the such samsaric rebirth is by stopping the contaminated karma and delusions. And that to do that, and by cutting the root of all that ignorance. Yes, please.
So Geshela, if we can cut the root of the samsara and get rid of ignorance, then my understanding, ultimate truth, pure mind, is that permanent? Or, I know our mind's impermanent,
No, the mind is not permanent. Sometimes you can find in certain prayer, certain practice, expressions of mind being permanent. And when you find such expressions of mind being permanent, it's referring to the continuity of the mind. That because their continuity always there. The continuity of the mind, it never ceases. There's no beginning and there's no end to the continuity of that mind. And because of that, sometimes they use the term permanent to describe, and it is more of describing of this never-ending continuity of the mind. Also, sometimes it's also referred impermanent because the very nature of the mind as being clarity and knowing, that part doesn't change. It's always there. So because of that, but actually the mind itself continues to change. And so therefore we call it impermanent. It's just like the water, the nature of water being a moisture doesn't change. That nature. Even the water is changing all the time. Similarly, the nature of the fire, heat, that doesn't change as long as there's fire. But the fire changes. The fire can become more heat, less heat, bigger fire, less fire, depending on how much fuel there is, depending on others. You can extinguish the fire, restart the fire, all of that. But again, that nature, and because of that, then sometimes you see this term using permanent, and when you see the permanent in some of mine, it's referring to that continuity, mostly that continuity. Yeah. But it doesn't mean the mind doesn't change, And even in terms of Buddha's mind, it's not changing like our mind, kind of like from being enlightened or unenlightened, or a little bit more enlightened, a little bit less enlightened, or a little bit more knowing, and then a little bit not knowing, You feel like you understood the emptiness, and then you feel like you didn't understood it. You feel like you got it, and you feel like you lost it. And you feel like, oh, now I understood, or that is what it means. Then suddenly, I didn't understand. So it's kind of can change it, feel like we have some kind of compassion certain time. Oh, I feel like I'm a kind person, and suddenly you feel, oh, I'm such a horrible person. So we see all these kind of changes, being peaceful, unpeaceful, all non-peaceful to peaceful, all kind of, but it isn't changing that way, but it is still kind of continuity. It's not static, permanent. That doesn't stay all the time in that way, but it is, the pure enlightened mind. Still there is a continuity that keep on moving, and that's the change moving, and so it is permanent, but yeah, okay, impermanent, talking about, yeah. Yeah, in many cases. Likewise, from existence or ignorance, the formation occur and so on, until finally, from the existence of birth comes aging and death. Okay. And just like the seeds and the sprout and the elements, for the seed to produce the result, the sprout, or for the sprout to produce the result, the stem and the leaf, and for the leaves to produce the result, the branches and all of that, and then the flowers and finally the fruit, they don't have to think I need to produce that, nor the resulting I'm being produced by that. Basically, as long as there's the right cause and conditions, when the right cause and conditions come together, then result is produced. The result is produced because all the right cause and condition have come together. As simple as that. Just as we have that understanding the external world, that is also the same way, the way it functions in also internal world. And so therefore here it says, ignorant by itself does not think I produce formation, karmic formation, nor do the karmic formations, your actions, karmic actions, does not think I'm being produced by ignorance, and so on. Finally, the bird doesn't think I produce aging and death, nor do the aging and death things I am produced by the bird. Nevertheless, karmic formation takes form and arises through the existence of ignorance, and so on, until finally aging and death takes form and arise through the existence of birth. This is the cause of relation in inner dependent arising to be seen. So, yeah, when certain cause, internal cause is produced, and then when the supported by the conditions, internal conditions, then certain result is being produced. Why is that? Why is that? Saying this is the way things are. It's the law of dependent arising, law of cause and effect. It's not like someone something Buddha or creator God or something decided to, say, oh, if you do that, it will happen this, or you will be punished for that. If you do that, you will be rewarded for that. Are we clear? It's nothing to do with that. It's nothing to do with reward and punishment. When you have a good seed, what we call undeficient seed, good seed, and then when it get all the other supporting conducive conditions, then it produce the result, whatever sprout, the plant, flower, fruit. We don't talk about it's a reward. It's just that you put all the cause and condition together, and then that is what you got. Do you think that, the flower is rewarding you? The seed is rewarding you? We don't have that concept. If we just think it's a certain cause and conditions, when you put certain cause and condition together, then produce. When the seed is deficient or seed is not rotten, and even other conditions are, it doesn't produce the plant. Yeah, it doesn't produce the plant, the flower, the fruit that you want. You don't think it as a punishment, do you? We don't think as punishment. We just see, oh, there is something wrong with the seed. There was something wrong with the seed. Or in other cases, the seed is good, but maybe the conditions are not there. And we see, the conditions are not the cause, and all the cause and condition not come together. That's why we didn't have harvest this year. We don't relate and think it's a punishment, And so here is saying just like that, in our internal world, we also experience different results. Sometimes pleasant experiences, happy, joyful experiences. Sometimes unpleasant experiences, pain and sufferings. And those are the result of certain cause and conditions, not that when you experience some kind of pleasant, joyful experience, is not a reward by something, nor when you experience pain and suffering is not a punishment by anyone. It's the functioning of cause and effect. That is as simple as that. It's interesting, I think in certain culture, because even people have such of course, people, regardless of what you believe in, you are very much influenced by your culture. And our culture are very much influenced by certain um, you know, philosophy, certain views, certain ideas, certain path, beliefs. And because of that, I find even a lot of students, even when they embrace the Dharma, even when they practice, sometimes they almost see it as something, when something bad happens, they are being punished. And I just find, where did that come from?
Oh.
Christianity.
You shouldn't be thinking this, there's no one is punishing you. Even the karma is not punishing you. Sometimes people think, oh, karma is punishing you.
I think it has another side to Geshe, which is if I'm good, I deserve this.
Mhm.
I'm entitled.
Yeah. So that idea of reward and punishment, it shouldn't be there, but still people, even after starting the Dharma and even after starting all sometimes, people still struggles and some kind of feel that, and sometimes I wonder why, and maybe, as I mentioned, it's still influence of the culture that you are so embedded, ingrained with that culture, and so still, yes, please.
Yes, well, I think being brought up Catholic, you have a very good sense of punishment,
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
reward and punishment.
And all those faiths with a God, almost the idea that they will look down and see us and judge us. And we're raised as children to be good little children, or there will be a punishment or whatever.
One. If I don't pay attention, if I'm not mindful, I go too close to the fire and I put my hand on the fire, I get burned, my hand burned. Nothing to do with punishment.
No.
I do not think it is a punishment. It's nothing to punish them. If it's not punishment, why did I burn my hand and suffer from that burn? Because I put my hand on the fire. And the nature of the fire is burning. The nature of the fire has burning energies, burning qualities, burning nature, burning characteristics. So anything that is put on the fire, it will get burned. And we never think that as a punishment, isn't it? If I don't prepare myself, and if I go when it's snowing or raining, I get wet. And what do you call it? Wet and just cold,
Frostbite.
hot body, all of that. But again, when we do that, you don't think of punishment. You just think cause and condition. The nature of rain, snow is a wet, moisture and wet. And if you are exposed to that kind of situation, you will get wet. It just means you have to be more careful and more prepared. But we don't think it is a punishment, do we? So here is saying, same you apply. Same, because the fire has burning nature, so if you put that, it will burn. And when you are feeling burn, if you fall in a cool water, it will cool down because the nature of water is cooling. And it's nothing to do with reward.
it just
Yeah.
occurred to me that in a way, my thinking of it as reward or punishment or whatever is lazy. It's sort of like, because it's not expecting, as you say, it to take it, the nature of things, then we take responsibility, we are mindful. And there's almost like, oh, well, you know, it
Mhm.
was, it's almost relegating responsibility for one's actions in a way, a kind of a laziness.
Yeah, and I'm also coming to that too. As
I just thought of-
so in that cases, we don't see it as a punishment or reward, but we see it as a cause and conditions. You know, when you are exposed to certain cause and conditions, then you experience the effect of that in certain way. You know. And that is, we apply that same understanding to the inner world. You know. So when I'm experiencing some suffering, pain, challenges, difficulty in my life, nobody is punishing me. Buddha is not punishing me. God is not punishing me. Karma is not punishing me. It is just that I happen to engage in certain cause and conditions, and as a result of such certain cause and conditions, just like putting my hand in the fire, then now I'm experiencing that my hand is getting burned. You know. Sometimes I put a hand in my in the fire because let's say someone child, because they don't understand it's a burning. Sometimes as an adult, you know it's a burning, but you are not mindful, not paying attention. Sometimes even you happen to pay attention, you know, somehow you kind of trip or something, and then you fall. That could be so different cause and conditions lead to why your hands are on the fire. It can be different cause and conditions that lead to that, intentionally or unintentionally, you know, and by different causes, but the result is more or less same, burning. And when you put your hand in that, it's burning. So same way, you know, understanding and accepting that, you know, it's just like that. I will be able to accept. Of course, I don't like my hand being burned. I experience pain from that, discomfort, and it's not something I wish and desire. Something that I wouldn't wish, or something I do not desire. But at the same time, when I put the or whatever, you know, then, you know, we accept, or, you know, instead of blaming others' process, you know, and so so similarly, just as we're about same thing, and so same thing when we experience pleasant, you know, joyful, again, you know, nobody is rewarding. It's not the Buddha is rewarding, not the God is rewarding, not the karma is rewarding. It's just that you engage in certain cause and conditions, and that kind of cause and conditions produce certain positive result, that kind of result, joyful result, happy experiences. It's just low cause and effect, depending on license. Once we understand that, then we don't have to, you know, keep blaming others all the time. You know, keeping blaming others all the time, by blaming others all the time, we are not taking responsibility for us to change. And because he is a her, nothing to do. Why should I? Because I don't take responsibility, so then I don't feel like I need to change my action, my behavior, or anything. As long as they don't do that for me, hope that they don't do it for me. And on the other hand, when you start blaming, then you cannot stop not getting upset and angry. You know. When I don't blame others for that, then there's no object for me to get upset and angry to them. If I don't get upset and angry to them, I don't have to suffer all of this. My hand being burned is burned. That doesn't change whether I get upset or not. Do you get it? Whatever damage, whatever harm, whatever pain, suffering that we have already endured, that cannot change whether I get upset or not get upset and angry. That doesn't change. But by getting upset and angry, on top of whatever I experienced physically, in this case, burning the hand, on top of that, then I experience so much emotional, mental pain, extra, so much, with that anger and upset, then as we talk, as today and before, so then, we lose our peaceful mind and stress and all this, we cannot concentrate, we cannot function well because we cannot concentrate. Sometimes you cannot sleep well because you're overthinking, disturbed by that, you cannot enjoy the food that normally you enjoy because your mind is not present in that food. Your mind is too occupied with thinking about what happened and how it happened, why he or she said this and this, that. So your mind gets so occupied, your mind cannot be in the moment present. So while you are eating it, your mind is not there and you cannot even enjoy your meal. It's just a motion of putting something in your mouth. There's no enjoyment because your mind is too occupied by all these thoughts. Even you try to watch something, entertainment that give you some kind of, temporary kind of enjoyment normally, even you cannot enjoy that because your mind is not there. Again, your mind is too old. So, we lose all of that. And that comes through because of that feeling of anger and upset. And that anger and upset comes towards someone because we blame them for that. If I don't blame that person, I don't have to be upset and angry with that person. And therefore, I don't have to experience all these extra pain and suffering on emotional, mental level. And then also that, which has an effect when you cannot sleep well, when you cannot eat well, because, when there's no peace, all of that also affect your physical well-being. So therefore, and it's so interesting, this human creature, it's so interesting. Sometimes I joke with the friends, and I think that is what it is. I joke with the friends sometimes, if everything goes well, it's my good karma. If something goes wrong, it's your fault. If I have a nice trip, if I have a nice time, it's my good karma. If I'm having a problem, it's your fault. I joke, but that is how we feel. That's what. And just as you said, Happy, as you said, when something goes right, then we take the credit. We take the credit. I did this, I work hard, I put so much effort, all this and this, I plan so much, all this and this. Something goes wrong, we are not willing to take credit. Take the responsibility. I work so hard, I put so much because of him, because of her, he or she didn't support me, he or she was not for me, he or she didn't do this and this and that. The blame is others.
A lot of us think at the moment, but you find people getting cancers and they say, why do bad things happen to such good people? Yes, complete lack of understanding.
Yeah, if we don't understand karma, then it's a hard question, Of course, karma and conditions, as I talk about that. As I mentioned before, so if we are more unbiased and more truthful, if you are willing to take credit for all the good things that happen in your life, when things go well and good things, you should be also equally willing to take responsibility when things goes wrong. Then there is more fair, more unbiased, more truth. If you are willing to blame others for things that go wrong in our life and everywhere, then you should be also willing to give credit to others when things go right. Very rarely we give credit to others. More time we feel we work so hard and do this and that to make things happen and all of that. We are not willing to give credit to others when things goes right. When things goes wrong, then we blame others and we are not willing to take the responsibility. And that seems a little bit kind of unfair, a little bit biased, And also we often, find easy to accept karma when things are going well. When things are going well in our life and someone is your good karma, oh, that makes sense. I can take it. I don't mind. It's easy to accept, easy to believe. But when things go wrong, when someone says, or someone explain or thinks or say, it's karma, then it's very hard to accept. Hard to believe, hard to accept. So much resistance. So much resistance. So yeah, so the point is, and coming to that, it's all about cause and conditions. It's all about the law of cause and effect. It's all about dependent arising. Nothing to do with punishment, nothing to do with reward. That is why. Just as we understand in relation to the external dependent arisings, when, like, such as your hand being burned, we don't think as a punishment like that. In the same way, we should be able to apply that in our internal world by seeing this is the functioning law of cause and effect. It's the functioning of, dependent arisings. That's what is happening. It's not someone is punishing me, not is someone rewarding me in that sense, but it is because when you have created certain cause and condition, then the result is the pain and suffering. On the other hand, when you engage in a more different kind of specific cause and conditions, then the result is a different happiness. And that's, yes.
Oh, yes, I was just thinking it's probably arrogant man view of trying to deal with bad Dharma, if you like, or like, it's, I'm unfortunately blind where I've actually made pizza, as people say, so you get delivered what you ordered. But what really helps is another step to that is when you are suffering from the consequences of your actions. I found it really useful to say, well, okay, if I'm suffering for my actions, then I'm going to take on, so I'll bet the hand, to use that example. I take on the suffering of all the other people who've burnt their hands. And it's quite amazing how that change of viewpoint really helps you. Because if you don't, there's something there going, geez, my hand still hurts. But when you seem to take on, say, well, okay, I've got a sore hand, but I'll make it useful. I'll take on other people suffering who've done similar. It seems to be it's been very useful for me. It's helped a lot.
Thank you for sharing. And definitely, those are kind of the Lojong practice, and if we can apply those, definitely there's no doubt if one is able to apply those teaching into practice, the benefit and help that it will have to oneself in dealing with suffering, pain, challenges. Another thing that I wanted to point, another problems that we have, or I see and I observe, is either we tend to blame others or blame yourself. Again, there is no point of blaming yourself. It's just cause and conditions. The nature of the fire is burning. The nature of certain actions have that kind of effect. The nature of certain actions have different effect. So again, we shouldn't blame yourself for that. It's like, let's say, as a young child, 1 year old, 2 years old, I might have done some things, as a result, maybe I'm experiencing something in my health issues now. So it is the same continuity, the child, but I don't have to blame myself being doing so silly and bad and that. It was done at that young boy who doesn't know much, whatever that is, So there's no need for harsh for me now of that person because of that continuity of that child being which I'm experiencing now to a certain level, and being hard on yourself, and then we can look that in the same way, from the past and all of that, we have to differentiate taking responsibility and blaming yourself. We should take responsibility, but not blame and be harsh and too critical and harsh and on oneself. That doesn't help. that doesn't help the situation. That doesn't make the things better. That doesn't make things change. It doesn't change things for better. It only could make worse. While we take responsibility, but at the same time, not to blame oneself. And I think that is the key. That's the key. One of the things, another thing that I often observe is people when they started to study and learn and think about karma, then they start to blame themselves. And then being too harsh on themselves. And hmm? Hmm? So there is no need to blame others and oneself. And as some of the masters says, and in their teaching, if you need the object of blame, probably we don't need to blame anyone, anything. But if you need to blame anyone or something, blame the delusions. Blame your delusion. Not you, but your delusion. Don't be harsh on yourself. If you want to be harsh on your delusions. It's important to distinguish. So I think I feel those are kind of important because I often see people sometimes being too harsh on themselves and blaming. Maybe they might not blame others, but then they blame themselves. And in that process, again, it hurts them, harms them. And then they started to feel so bad about themselves. They started to feel, negative about themselves and all of that. It doesn't help. And it's not only to make just good feeling, but true reality is our delusion. It's due to our delusion. I don't want to get angry, and I try very hard not to get angry, but sometimes the delusion is too strong. I don't want to have craving, attachment. I try hard not to have craving and attachment, but sometimes they're too strong, cannot stop. So should I blame even after not wanting and even trying? Instead you should give credit. At least you are trying. Or the imprint are so strong, talking about from the countless, beginningless life, the imprint was so strong, they are so powerful. And even when we found the Dharma, and even not really found the Dharma, even when you try to practice and put a lot of effort, still, there are times when you lose to those emotions, affected emotions. It's not, you are not even, it's not like you only knowing you are not trying, you are even trying very hard. Despite all of that, sometimes those emotions too strong, overwhelm, and then in the process of that emotion, then we engage in certain actions, and through certain actions, then we create the cause and condition, the karma, and as a consequences, we experience certain undesirable, unpleasant experience in the futures. But we shouldn't be too harsh on yourself for having done, because it is because the delusions overpower you, overwhelm you in that moment for us to feel that way and act that way. It's like being, someone being possessed by another energy at that point, in that moment, It's like someone who has a mental health issues and they never know when it's going to come suddenly and then started to behave and act like that, where they have no control, and just that's something what happened to us with as well. And then in that moment is the when we engage in some unwholesome actions.